Hello everybody, Dave at Erie Arachnids, doing the week 2 update, week in review. Yeah, week in review. Like I did last Sunday, was just a quick overhaul of the things that happened over the week. There wasn't a ton of stuff that happened this week, really, to be honest with you. The Chilobrachys species Cancrochon, it's in here. This Discalus here, Chilobrachys discalus, both of them molted. I think the Discalus actually molted last Sunday. That's why there's a roach in there, because I threw it in there yesterday. I think it would be ready to eat, and it hasn't come out, so it's not really ready. But I can't remember, because again, all my records are on the phone here, so when I start doing a video, then I can't remember, I can't look it up because I'm videoing. But so that roach it may have been later, and I probably fed too early. But so those two there, the Lugardi molted, but I think that was last week. I'm pretty sure the Lugardi was last week. My Ephiopocene anathis molted. I'll bring her down and I'll show her to you. And then this gal here molted last night. She started, well, she was done. She flipped back over around 3:30 in the morning. Well, at least she was flipped back over at 3:30 in the morning. Let's put it that way. Let me home in on her. There she is there. Okay, let me get so I can try not to shake too much. Okay, this is the Aphonopelma gabelli. She is absolutely stunning right now. She's got a lot more brown in her. Her front legs are brown. Last time they weren't. She'll have that dark triangle on her carapace, and of course those huge chelicerae. You can see that white line on her L3. You could see that on the patellas there, but it's a little farther back down. I guess there's one there. So it's kind of weird. I want to make sure that I get some really, really good pictures of her. We're going to change her enclosure. I don't know if I'm going to move her out of this and into those bigger ones that I showed you, because she probably could go in there. But she's also only going to be about 4 inches. This is pretty much the size of her. And she's perfectly content in this coconut hide. But she's been in here since I got her. And I'd like to at least change the substrate out, because it's over 2.5 years now that she's had the same substrate, this coconut hide in the same place. So if I end up putting her back in the shoebox, then we'll put the coconut hide in the back, we'll bury it, and then we'll have higher substrate, in that area, so she has like a burrow to go down in, and then we'll just level it off on this side so it's lower, and she's not crawling out all the time. But yeah, so I wanted to show you her because she is really, really, for an Aphonopelma, she's really stunning, to be honest with you. She really, really is. So yeah, those are the ones that molted, and there's a handful that desperately need to, and she's one of them right here. You could see ventrally. There's no ifs, ands, or buts if we have a female. It's a Poecilotheria miranda. She needs to molt. She's huge. This guy here, you can see him back there. That's the Psalmopoeus pulcher, male, and then this one back here is one of the females. That's Lakini. She molted relatively close to when Salem did, and they molted months ago. And I expected him to molt in that period of time too, and he didn't. This is Thorn. So I would expect that he would be the first one to molt out of the 3. And he's hopefully going to be, I don't know if he's going to be mature this time. I'm kind of hoping so, because that molt with him and these two should be ready to go in another molt. They're not ready right now. I think the next molt, they should be enough sclerotized that they'll be ready to breed. I'd like to get the 2 females bred this year. That's my goal, to get some Psalmopoeus pulcher babies back out there in the hobby. But so you have that, and then we have some excavating news, and there's the Sanguida, the female Ceratogeorus darlingi. You could see that she brought all her dirt up to the very lid of her enclosure. Now, she's burrowed down there. It goes underneath the log all the way across, comes across this way, and then up in the corner is her exit number 2. I would imagine that once she's all done, she'll make exit number 3, because she had 3 or 4 exits in the last time. Then she ended up filling one in. But so you had her that's done that. Of course, you have Lana here, who's still moving dirt. Like, she's got a big ball of it right now. Look at that. It's a boulder. I don't know how she's going to get that out of there. If she gets that out of there, she's good. I mean, that's huge. And she did that. That's not anything that I did. She made that. Why aren't you focusing? She made that ball with webbing and just continually rolling that thing. But that's pretty big for her to move. I may have to help her. We'll see. I don't know. We may have to wait till she goes down into her burrow, and I may have to get the tongs and pull it out of there for her, because I think that's just going to keep rolling back down. And this one, quote unquote, Porteri, which is actually a Rosea, is pretty much done. She's not really moved much dirt. So other things today, well, then you had this one, Stratojaurus, or Cereopagopus lividus, has brought the dirt turret all the way up to the lid. I'm not real happy about that, because we're going to have to wreck that. Today's going to be today's Asian wet down day, and I'm not going around spraying a bunch of Asian people. I'm just going to wet down the substrate for my Asian species. So the Brachyramosa, my Chilobrachy species, the Ornithoctinae species, the Ornithoctonus aureotibialis, the Orphanacus philippinus. Those ones will all get their substrate dampened today. And then some moves that are going to happen soon. This one here, Brachypelma albopilosum nicaraguan, right around the 2-inch mark, roughly. When she molted, she's really, really dark and shiny, so she should be molting soon. She'll move out of there into one of these, so that we will get dirt all the way up to roughly the vent holes, and make a burrow for her on the side and give her some cork bark, let her go to town. And I'm thinking about moving this Augustophila zindami into one of these enclosures. I'm just not quite sure I'm ready to do that yet, because I think this the Chilobrachys fimbriatus is probably going to be the first one out of the softball cube people, my softball cube peoples, that will need to move. If I don't trade the Davus penniloris, that'll be the next one. So those are the two I think that are the largest. So they may need to go into, enclosures like this. But I also would like to move the Homoioma species blue out of one of those into something, more like this. One more of these, I think. That would be the last one to have to be moved into this for a while. But you're going to see that one needs a new home. So there's some new homes that have to be done. But yeah, other than that, collection-wise, everything's fine. I will go over some things that should transpire this week into next week. So the next 2 weeks, all of them could come in this week, or you could just get one package this week and 2 packages next week. I'm not quite sure exactly when things are going to happen, but give me one quick second and we'll go from there. Here's the me in front of the camera part. Just a week recap, really, of what's gone on in the groups. The groups have been relatively quiet, actually. I mean, you get the same stuff, with the same people that cause the same problems. In either groups that I moderate in or groups that I don't moderate in, it's the same people that create the same problems all the time. And people just need to hear themselves talk. That's really all it is. And you get people that are easily offended, and then you get 10 other people that are easily defended, and before you know it, you have 2 or 3 people that are very blunt about information, and 10 people that are calling them jerks, and they need to have a better way of conveying their ideas. And yeah, it may be true, but you know what? People are people, and you're not going to change people. That's really all there is to it. I mean, you're just not going to do it. We can't do it. I can't change the way people talk to each other. I mean, you can't do it. Nobody can do it. People have to want to do it. But just trying to be out there for everybody and know that anybody can come and talk to me at any time. I try to be accessible as best as I possibly can. But to go back to the whole handling thing, it was talked about again a few times on a couple groups, and I was actually surprised that it was talked about in a positive way instead of a negative way. And it was funny because the person that did it is a very respected person. And he just said, basically in a nutshell, you know, who am I really to tell you what to do with your tarantulas? If you're doing things in a safe manner, that's who really cares? And my advice is this: if you think that you're going to get ridiculed and hammered and basically molested on a group because you're showing a handling picture, then don't put it on there. I mean, that may sound stupid, and people are going to be like, well, I could put a picture on that I want to, and I should be able to be talked to the way I want to be talked to. Well, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen on social media, because people can stand behind a keyboard and say whatever they want, whenever they want. And if you haven't learned that now, then shame on you. I know if I don't want somebody to ridicule something that I do, I just don't post it. It's, you know, I don't need to post everything. And there are people that are like that, though, that, you know, they woke up this morning and their spider is sitting on the side of the glass. So we got to take a picture. What do you think she's doing that for? She doesn't do that very often. Why do you think she's doing that? And then 2 hours later, oh, she's back down in her hide. She's perfectly fine. And then 2 hours later, she's drinking water. Check it out. We don't need to see that all the time. I mean, I may sound condescending, but you don't need to post 65 pictures of the same tarantula doing the same thing in one day. I mean, I post a lot of pictures of certain spiders because I get good pictures of them. Cheeto is easy to take pictures of because she's up and out a lot. The GBBs are easy to take pictures of because they're so colorful, and it's easy to do that. Obi here is really easy to take pictures of now that he's not so, you know, he's a little bit more bold after his molt now. He's not fleeing into his hide all the time. So that's basically really that's going on. But this person went on to say, you know, someone else had said the only time you should handle is if you have to, and you have to transfer them from one enclosure to another, and then really you should only use catch cups. Well, you know what? There's a bunch of different ways to do rehousing. Some people will just, you know what, crawl on my hand. I'm gonna put my hand over there, crawl off my hand, and that comes with the lack of fear of the animals and that they trust them. And I don't know that I trust any of them, to be honest with you. There's some that I don't worry about, but you know, I mean, I've seen people handle their Chalcodes, their Phonopelma Chalcodes. From the time I got her in, she was kind of sketchy. I don't know that I really want to put my hand near her. Same thing with the Gabelli. Just a little sketchy, and, you know, more apt to crawl right out of their enclosures and be right in your face kind of deal. So not in their enclosures, but their hides. You know, it's like they have to know what's going on and they're trying to defend their territory. But yeah, really, that's the thing. You know, it seems like we go in waves on the group. So you'll get a couple weeks of, excuse me, some really dumb comments. And then they just, you know, 2 days later, somebody else will do the same dumb comments on a different group. And you're just like, where does this stuff come from? You know? And what I found out, and what I'm realizing, again, the longer that you do this, you actually, if you pay attention to people, you actually can kind of get an idea of, I don't even want to say cycles, but you can kind of get an understanding of where some of this information is coming from. Now, let's take, for instance, we'll use humidity as the point, the dry point. Now, I'm not going to talk about what I mean, but we're going to say, you know, oh, my spider died. It got stuck in a molt. So someone that doesn't have a lot of experience will come on and say, you know, what are some of the reasons that a tarantula might get stuck in a molt? And you get the first 10 people are like, oh, your humidity level must not have been right. Had to have been your humidity level. Had to be your humidity level. And here's my question. How do you know really what the humidity level is in your enclosure? Do you know for sure that that's what the humidity level that animal needs? Because where they're living in now, whatever the humidity level is, they seem to be doing okay. Okay? So somebody will go on and say, look, humidity really doesn't have anything to do with molting. It doesn't help them. Water is an absolute terrible lubricant. It's absolutely miserable for a lubricant. If it was good, it would be in your engines of your car. And it's not. So having having that idea. Okay, so people continually will say, oh, humidity. And someone will say, no, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Oh, well, I read, or this person told me. Well, you know what? That person told you and probably read what that person read and what that person read. And all that information is pretty much outdated. And if you go back in time and think about the way that tarantulas were kept in the 70s and 80s, they were kept on sand, a little bit of substrate, 50 crickets in there at a time. When a tarantula wants to eat one, he'll eat one. And then as people observed them and understood their behaviors a little bit more, things changed in the hobby. And information that was gathered and used, hold on, bees, well, I'll let you out in a minute. Things that were used back then and the information that's used back then has been either disproven or just not a practice that we use anymore. Before, everyone's like, oh, AVIC, they come from Brazil, you got to spray the crap out of them. And then people couldn't understand why they were dropping dead all the time. Well, you spray the crap out of them, you create stagnant, moldy, crappy air. They can't exchange the air through their book lungs correctly. And boom, you have sudden avicularia death syndrome. And anything that happens that you have to put a label on, like SADS, is pretty pathetic. ICUs were used exclusively when a spider didn't look right. Oh, throw it in an ICU. Now, I don't recommend that. I mean, if you want to increase humidity around your tarantula, why don't you just throw some moss in the enclosure and spray the crap out of the moss and then cover up the vent holes instead of getting the spider out of where it's at, creating more issues than it already has. I mean, we had someone this happened last week. Someone had a spider that molted. It didn't look right, so the first thing he did was take it out, put it in an ICU. Well, the spider died. And, I mean, the spider flipped over. It just flipped over. And this is one of the first tarantulas that molt. He didn't understand. So he kind of panicked. He saw videos on ICU, so he thought that would be the way to go because he thought the spider was dehydrated. And really what happened is the spider just hasn't completely recovered yet. Scoop it up. Scooping up a spider with an exoskeleton that's not completely hardened is not a good idea. Threw it into a cup with some wet paper towels, left it in there for a couple of days, and then came on the group and asked a question about, my spider died, this is what happened. I put it in ICU, and you're like, okay, for love of Pete, please only use an ICU as a last resort. I mean, as a last resort. I know some people have had a few successes, but the majority of them are failures. So only do it as a last resort. You're better off doing it in the enclosure. And the way to do that is to saturate the substrate, throw some moss in there, saturate the moss, and cover up the vent holes. Heat the spider up. Move it from where it's sitting here closer to a heater so that heat will create the humidity in the tank that you think that you need. And boom, then there's your ICU in their normal enclosure. Why take them out? I just don't. I mean, I've done it a couple times as a last resort. And I know that Marilyn had one that actually worked out. Her Ephebopus marinus worked out. But for the most part, they don't. So these are the kind of things that you kind of deal with. And of course, then that person got hammered. A new keeper, his first molt, he killed a spider, did something wrong. And of course, people have to hammer him instead of saying, hey, you know what? We all make mistakes. This is what you did wrong. This is why you don't do it. Okay? Instead of saying, oh, way to go, buddy, you just killed your spider, and that's all that you post. Why even bother doing that? And that's because people like to hear themselves talk. They need to feel like they're in control of everybody, or they're someone in charge. Like they control the conversation by saying something idiotic like that. It's not helpful. After that video that I did the other day, Peyton got a hold of me from Peyton's Tarantulas, and we talked just briefly about, her experiences and how much she got hammered when she first started doing videos because she was handling them all the time. And, she was getting hammered and ridiculed on her substrate levels and whatever else it was. But she was constantly getting people that were saying, you're a bad keeper, you're just trying to be famous, blah, blah, blah. Crap like that wasn't really true. Because she chose to handle her spiders. That's her business. I've never seen her do anything handling-wise that's unsafe. She's always on the floor. She's always close to the ground. She's never standing up. I see people with pictures all the time with tarantulas on their heads. They're standing up. I mean, And these are people that'll go and say you shouldn't handle your tarantula, but boom, if I go to your profile, I start going to your pictures, there's 5 or 10 pictures of you handling your tarantula. It just drives me crazy. And again, I'm ranting about something that probably doesn't need to be talked about again, but I'm just kind of recapping everything that happened with the other video. Nobody said anything negative on that, on the comments of that. And I really expected some negative comments, to be honest with you, and I didn't get any. That doesn't mean go out there and do it, but I was actually surprised that I didn't get anybody saying, you know, I think you're totally wrong, that, you know, you absolutely shouldn't handle a spider. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people say, hey, you know what, they're goldfish in a tank without the water. And yeah, for the majority of the time, they're in their enclosures and they stay in their enclosures. And every now and then you take the enclosure down, you pull it out, you want to take a bolus out, and one of these two climbs out, the Porteri or the Rosea, or quote unquote both Roseas. If one of them crawled out, I put my hand there. If it crawls out on it, then great. And then I'll just hold it for a little while and put it back in again. I didn't pull it out. I didn't say, you're getting held now, you know. So, yeah, they are kind of like fish without water. So, you know, dirt fish, I guess you can call them. People call them land lobsters and land octopuses and everything else. But they're not as fragile as we think they are. I mean, they are a fragile being, but they've been around for 300 million years. And I think if you go back to why are tarantulas having problems with molts, is going to be a video that I do this week. Again, this will be stuff that's theorized on my end, just observation, because I've had my fair share of spiders not make it through molts or die relatively closely after molts. And there's a lot of things that we can't see that goes on inside of them. So, but again, to go back to the humidity and molting, there is no real tie between the two. What you need is that spider needs to have internal hydration. It needs to have the amount of fluid it needs to pump and separate the old exoskeleton from the new exoskeleton. And then once it's actually molts, it needs enough of that fluid inside its body to be able to pump those legs, push those legs out. That's why you see them constantly. They're moving their legs. They're pumping all that stuff back into their legs. And then flip back over and start walking again. Now, generally, when they flip back over and start walking again, within a couple days, they're generally at the water dish. You saw Arkham the other day. He actually took his meal, started to web it up, dropped it, and went over and got a drink. And so you know that actually water is that important, that they would actually drop a meal and go over there and drink water. So, yeah. So, again, there's probably stuff I didn't really need to talk about because I could do this all in different videos. But, so, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I generally don't ask people to like or comment. Well, I do. I mean, I like hearing the comments, but I never tell anybody to like my videos. And I don't even know what that does for my videos, to be honest with you. If you want to like them, like them. If not, it's not that big of a deal. You know, and if you're watching my videos and you're not a subscriber and you've been watching them for a while, you know, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to get to 1,000 before I get to Buffalo, the Buffalo show in May. And believe me, I'm almost at 50% more, subscribers now than when I started the year. So we've really moved. I'm almost at 750 already, and I was just at, you know, not even 3 or 4 days ago, was just under 700. So thank everybody for doing that. Other stuff coming up this week is going to be a shout out video, maybe 2. So look forward to that, and have a great week. See you later. Bye bye.